The true story of 5 travelers picked to go on a mission to find out what happens when they challenge a house full of strangers to the first ever Real World Road Rules Challenge.
Hello world, this is David Chakur, the Couch Potato, lover of TV, film, and pop culture. Today I'm talking about one of my favorite crossovers, maybe one of the most important crossovers of all time. I'm talking about the very first Real World Road Rules Challenge, which happened during the Real World Boston and Road Rules Islands seasons in 1997, a little over 25 years ago. So the Real World Boston was my first season of watching the Real World, and I loved it. I love the format. Looking back on it now, it's like so 90s, and it's just something entirely its own thing. Road Rules was a show where 5 strangers drove around on an RV and completed missions for prizes, and eventually Real World and Road Rules collided. So the Real World Boston team was sent to Puerto Rico because they were volunteering at a Boys and Girls Club of Boston, and they were setting up a pen pal program. Road Rules team was there also, and the producers wanted them to meet up for a challenge. So this was the first Road Rules Real World Challenge, and it was alright. It's mostly like team building exercises, like in the woods in Puerto Rico, something similar to like my 6th grade camp, where you have to like push the whole class over a wall. The cast of the Real World is Cyrus, Camila, Genesis, Jason, Elka, Montana, and Sean. And the Road Rules team is Erica, Jake, Callie, Carlos, and Vince. The episode opens up with the Road Rules team getting a chocolate cake, and they're getting ready to cut into it. They're so excited, it looks delicious. It turns out to be fake, it's not a real cake, and I think Callie is like super disappointed about it. So underneath the cake is the clue to their next mission, and they have to face off against the Real World team. And they have dossiers about all the different cast members, a little bit about them, their picture. At first, they think their names are fake because they sound so weird or whatever. But they're super excited about the mission, and the Road Rules team decides to write little comments about all of the Real Worlders, like talking crap, making digs based on the profiles before they even meet them. So the next day, they leave the note with the hotel concierge of where the Real World team is going to stay, and they're there before the team gets there. The Real World team shows up at the hotel, they get their clue, they see the Road Rules logo, they're super excited because they see there's a challenge between the two teams. The girls get so excited, and they see the little comments that they've made towards them. So he makes a comment towards Cyrus about snuffing him out, being a 6'2" Jew. Cyrus is like, whatever. Sean thinks a gay guy and the other team wants to roll his log. He's not sure what to make of that, but that's pretty funny. So yeah, the Real World team bonds over the whole experience. They're super geared and pumped up. The next day, the Road Rules team is getting ready for the competition. Genesis makes a comment on Jason's clothes because he's wearing like pajamas and doesn't want the other team to make fun of him, or he thinks that it won't intimidate them. And then Jason makes a comment back about her Daisy Dukes, and he calls them grandma shorts, which I've never seen a grandma on Daisy Dukes, but anyways. Genesis is wondering if there's any cute girls on the other team, and Montana makes a comment like the chances that there's a cute girl and she's a lesbian aren't that high, but she notes that Sean wants to hook up, so it's foreshadowing possibly. So the Real World team gets on their bus to go to the challenge, and both teams are like talking crap about the other teams.
What happens when you pick 7 strangers, put them in a house, and they make total and complete ass out of themselves?
Genesis is a little bit fired up because of all the comments, and she notes that you shouldn't be talking crap about us when you don't even know us. And even though she doesn't always get along with her teammates, she feels a camaraderie with them, having other people talk crap about them, and this is actually good for the team. The Road Rules team shows up into the woods, they change into their clothes. Carlos makes a comment about not getting his shoes dirty, and the other girls comment about him not saying anything in front of the other team about it, and how he's kind of a prima donna. Real World team shows up. Camila does like an English accent, and she's super pumped to see the other teams, but they're not there. They have to walk down into the woods before they can meet them. So the Road Rules team is in the woods. They're already changed. They're kind of getting antsy, waiting for the other team to show up. The Real World team eventually shows up into the woods, and they comment how big Cyrus looks. They go down and they meet them, and before they even shake hands, so Genesis is all mad. She's like, oh yeah, you talk crap about my team. What's up with that? So for the challenge, there's 5 different games. There's going to be a $50 prize and 1 point for the first 4 games, and the last game is going to have a $100 prize. So because the Real World team have 2 more members than the Road Rules team, each game there are 2 people who have to sit it out. They pull their names out of a hat and they're not able to compete in that round. Jason thinks they're going to get killed. He's not too confident. They tell them that the losers are going to suffer some type of humiliation, and that's all they say about it. So the Real World team, they're putting on their safety gear. They're trying to strategize. Oscar says that the girls on the other team don't look as big as the girls on their team, and how their girls are monsters or animals. He doesn't quite know how to put it. So for the first game, the team has to pass each member through this net, and there's holes in it of different sizes. Each member has to go through 1 hole. They can't use the same hole twice. If they touch the rope and inside the hole, they have to start over. The Real World team wins the first game, and the Road Rules team is pissed because they're actually living off of the money they win from these contests. And I'm sure Real World doesn't really need the money the same way that the Road Rules team does. So the first $50 goes to the Real World. So the next game, the teams have to cross from one platform to another using a plank to balance on or to use. And the plank can't touch the ground, and the members can't touch the ground. They're crossing the plank, they're crossing the 2 platforms. The Real World team is almost done. Cyrus decides to jump from one platform to the other. He slips, and it's like the most painful shin bust you've ever seen. Like, I can feel it every time I see it. And they keep showing it over and over again, so I keep feeling it over and over. But Cyrus bangs his shin. He touches the ground, so he has to go back. He does it like a champ. He goes back over. The other team holds the plank out. He jumps on it, and the Real World team wins the second game. So this is where the first episode ends. The second episode picks up right where the other one leaves off, where Cyrus is injured. His shin is like bleeding, terribly bleeding. They bandage it up as best as they can. He doesn't want to quit. He wants to keep playing. So the third game is the box, and it's a small cube box. All 5 members have to stand on with 1 foot, and they have to balance for 5 seconds. So the Real World team wins, so they break for lunch. They're having like bologna sandwiches, and now the Real World team and the Road Rules team have a chance to actually get to know each other, and they get to hang out. So immediately, Callie starts talking to the Real World team about how they only have $14 for a week, and they're like, maybe laying it on a little thick. Maybe they want the Real World team to give them some money because maybe they don't need as much. Oscar and Cyrus, they ended up bonding and talking. They end up eating lunch together, and they bond over how they're both like the outcasts of the group. So Sean talks to the team about maybe throwing some of their money at the Road Rules team because they don't have so much. And Camila and Genesis aren't into it. Like, Genesis, they're like, oh yeah, that's not our problem. Camila's like, they came at us thinking they're going to win. If the shoe was on the other foot, would they help us? They're not sure. They have the power, and they're, flexing it. So Callie's like making fun of Jake because he's like talking to all the girls on the other team, and he's like flirting with them. And there's a photo op with both teams. It's kind of cool that there's 2 different shows that are filming at the same time, and they get to both experience it and then like talk to each other about it. And I think Sean later notes that this is the first time this happened while they were filming, so it's pretty interesting or cool. So for the 4th challenge, it's the wall, and this is a pretty simple challenge where every team member has to get over this wall. They have to scale it, help each other up, and they can't use like the sides to climb up, except for the last person. This is something I did at 6th grade camp, and it was fun. So on this game, I think Cyrus and Jason have to sit it out. So Sean is the only guy on the Real World team. There's 4 girls and Sean, and then the guy hosting it, he kind of mentions this to the Road Rules team. So the Road Rules, they ended up winning this challenge. Camila is the last one to go over the wall. She doesn't quite make it. She tries to climb up a tree. So the Road Rules team wins their first challenge. They're so happy because now they have $50 instead of 14, or 64 I should say. Even though I think the Real World team won like the most points by now, the Road Rules team still has money. So the final event is a 4-way tug of war. It's like a cross of like rope. So this is interesting because the Real World team are kind of pulling this way when the Road Rules team eventually they pull this way, and the Road Rules team ends up winning. I'm not sure exactly what the rules were on this one. They weren't entirely clear, but it's fine because the Road Rules team needs the money. They win $100 for the final event and another point. The Real World team has won the overall event, and as far as money goes, they are tied. So because the Real World team wins overall, they find out that the humiliation is the Road Rules team members have to give the Real Worlders pedicures. And Oscar is not on board with this. He's like, I'm not doing it. He finds out he has to give Montana a pedicure, and then he mentions the fact that she's a woman and she's a feminist, so she does not take this well. And she ends up picking up like a ball of mud and putting it in Oscar's face, like smearing it in his face, which isn't really that cool. Maybe like she could have like pantsed him if she wanted to humiliate him, or like put it on his head or something, but in the face, I don't know. Genesis agrees that like she's kind of crossed the line, but this goes into like a little bit of a mud fight in between the two of them. They go back and forth. Montana does like a WWF move. I'm sure the Miz would be proud. They scuffle and then it's over. Oscar's like, you know, he thinks it's pretty disrespectful what she did. They all get their money. Cyrus thinks that the team's bonded over this, and I think that I agree because like their cast wasn't always getting along on their show in Boston, and especially at this point, they weren't always on the same page. Cyrus kept competing on his shin, so it was hurting, and he decided he needed to go to a hospital. So Sean is intrigued by the Road Rules team, and like they're like talking about them. Camila hopes they're cooler than they were, you know, at the competition. They decide to meet up and go out. I think Sean makes a comment how like they're more mature than the other team, but maybe some of them, not all of them. Sean and Jason are talking about the girls. Like he's asking, Sean's asking Jason like which girl he would get down with if he wasn't in a relationship. And Jason says that Erica is cute and she's really like pretty, and Sean thinks that Callie's cute. That night they go out. The Road Rules team meets the Real Worlders at a club, while Cyrus is at the ER. He's getting his shin looked at, and it looks like he's got to get stitches. It looks really painful. So the Road Rules and the Road World team are hanging out still. They're dancing, they're getting along, everything is fun. Sean's getting to know Erica, he's flirting with her. It keeps showing them like, you know, talking really close and maybe kissing. So they're still partying at like 5 in the morning, and Sean is definitely putting the moves on Erica hard, and you know, why not? You're young, you're dumb, whatever. It cuts to the next morning, they're all getting breakfast. They all think that Sean actually hooked up with her. They all have different comments, which are funny and great. Sean doesn't really like, you know, deny or confirm what happened. But Montana, she has like the best comment ever about it.
Sean and Erica macked down at the bar. They didn't just kiss, they went to town. They went in the bathroom, had her up against the wall. You know what I'm saying?
Sean's just playing it cool, whatever. After the credits, there's more scenes where they were on the bus coming back from the mission and they're talking crap about each other. Some of the comments are pretty funny. Camila's like, oh yeah, they're all white bread, and yeah, it's pretty good. So this was the first time the Real World and the Road Rules teams actually collided. This was the start of something big. So the first season was 5 Real World All-Stars, and they were on a season of the Road Rules where they were going around doing challenges. They didn't compete against Road Rules. That would happen later. I haven't missed a season in 25 years. It all started with this episode. I love watching the Real World cast members come back and compete for money, and just seeing them and seeing how their lives may or may have not have progressed. And it was just a cool idea. I love how each season they like try to evolve or grow and get bigger, and it's been on for 25 years now almost. I think the Real World should come back, and some of the earlier seasons in the 90s are definitely the best ones. Boston was the first season I saw, like from beginning to end. I think Boston was great. Seattle, Hawaii was good. New Orleans was definitely a great season. It was maybe like the last season of like the 90s, or like the original run. after that, things started to change based on, like, you know, casting was different. The people seemed to be a little less authentic and more like based on stereotypes. So I love this crossover. I thought it was great. I'm so glad that entire franchise spun off this, and there's so many seasons and storylines and great things that have come out of it. Thank you for joining me. Subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. If you love the challenge as much as I do, please just let me know what you think. If you've seen this episode and you were there 25 years ago, let me know. Thank you.